Hey you guys.
Hi.
Hello.
This is Charlie Schlueter, who many people watching this video will know, former principal trumpeter of the Boston Symphony. And we're here in San Rafael, California at Mary Spire's Feldenkrais practitioner training. Hi, Mary.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great because Charlie and I have just sat in on the last 2 days of your training here.
Wonderful.
So
yes.
tell people just real briefly, very briefly, what is the Feldenkrais method and what are you training? What are you
Okay.
training them to do?
The Feldenkrais method, simply said, is a method to help people learn to move better, to think better, to act better, and to enjoy their life better, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
Yeah, and we do it by learning to learn. So how is this? And you mentioned earlier when we were talking that the definition of intelligence is the ability to learn. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what Webster says. So
Yeah.
you are teaching people how to be more intelligent, not only in ways that one would normally think, but also intelligent in the body.
Correct. And the use of one's body and how we can be freer, how we can basically enjoy our life better by being more efficient.
And
I'd say.
indeed, and that's what we've been doing for the last 2 days. It's just lovely, such lovely work. And you work with musicians from all over the planet.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, classical musicians, jazz musicians, folk musicians, they come from all over to study with you.
Correct. And a lot of them are in the training. I mean, people have self-selected to be here, having heard about the work. And now I have to say, Feldenkrais, the method is really coming into its own now with this whole awareness of the neuroplasticity of the brain and how we can change our patterns and how we can live better lives, understanding what we're doing and do it more efficiently. And that is not just for the physical realm, but also emotional, mental, the whole thing. In other words, how do we live lives better?
Yes, and you mentioned something earlier when we were talking about many musicians come into you and they're using just part of their body when they play. Can you just talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, so we're talking about efficient use of oneself. And most musicians I've worked with across the board don't know that they have the body, the whole pelvis, the whole torso. And they concentrate more on using their digits. Or if they're a horn player, they think about their production of sound, which obviously is very important, and the embouchure, absolutely. And what is lacking is the awareness that if you use your whole self, you have much more grounding and you have a bigger sound and you're freer to produce the sound that you want. So, but most musicians I found, they don't know, 5 years old, you're handed a flute or whatever it is, and just play, don't worry about it, just, so what? You get tendonitis, you get a little focal dystonia, or, wherever it is. I'm sure some of your colleagues have had focal dystonias, like... Several, yeah. I work with one of the players, I won't mention who, in the Boston Symphony, and it was remarkable how, using her brain and learning new patterns, she had no idea what she was doing in order to create the problem she had. And when I just looked at it, I said, well, what about that? And, suddenly, and that's a difficult disorder to work with. It's basically given a, death knell.
Well, focal dystonia, I originally thought only applied to embouchures, but it applies to any part of the body that doesn't function the way it was trained to.
Yes.
And it usually has an emotional underpinning to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're going to have to get together more and talk.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Charlie, just real briefly, you've sat in on training for the last 2 days, and you have a little bit of experience up in Portland working with the Feldenkrais method with Alice. So what are your impressions from the player standpoint of the work that we did here the last 2 days with Mary and the work that you started with Alice last year?
I wish I had gotten into this about 25, 30, 40 years ago. And I'm going to take the Feldenkrais training program starting in Boston in about 2.5 weeks.
So in 2.5 weeks, you will have your first segment of practitioner training in Boston.
Right.
That's absolutely wild. We're going to have even more to talk about than we have had for the last 35 years, Charlie.
Yeah, that's
Whole
great.
new dimensions of this.
Another parallel universe.
Yeah,
Right?
jumping right in. Thanks. So Mary, just to recap here, you work with musicians from all over the map, and I've been to one of your workshops.
Yes.
I've attended one a couple of months ago and had a couple clients come in as well.
Yes.
And you're doing work with them, doing functional integration work with them while they're playing.
Correct.
And I heard miracles happen. I heard
Yes.
somebody go away for 10 minutes and practice for a year and then come back, except they didn't go away for a year. They had a 10-minute lesson from you,
Yes.
and boom, it's a different universe.
So what I provided was the tool. What I do is I observe what they're doing, see what is lacking in their movement or in their thinking. It can be emotional too. What is
Yes.
lacking? And then give that piece to them. And again, back to the nervous system. Most people are pretty intelligent if you give them the choice, like, do you want to do it this way or do you know what you're doing? Once you know what you're doing, you can change it, provided you have some better thing to put in, So that's what I do.
And there's a New York Times bestseller that talks about some really important aspects of the work that you do, written by Dr. Norman Deutsch, and it's called The
Correct.
Brain's Way of Healing.
Correct.
And that's easy to find. You can Google it and find it, and it's
2 chapters on Feldenkrais in that book.
yeah. And Feldenkrais is becoming so popular that at the last Scripps Spelling Bee, National Spelling Bee,
Yes.
the final word was Feldenkrais.
I almost fell off my chair. Uh-huh. I did.
Were you watching it?
Yes.
At the time?
Yes, and I
Yeah.
go, Feldenkrais.
And of course, they were talking about the man, but they were talking about the method.
They were.
Mary, when is your next workshop specifically for musicians?
October 8th is the next workshop from 12 to 5 o'clock here in beautiful San Rafael.
Yeah, in this gorgeous room that you
Yeah.
have here. This is just a beautiful room, beautiful
And then-
view, top of the hill.
The exciting thing is that I'm going to be able to stream it live, so people who are in Hong Kong or China or wherever they might be can actually get on the right time zone, but they can check in. They can sign up and have the link for the Zoom, and they can be present for the whole workshop.
And I have been to your studio, your private studio in Berkeley, and it's a gorgeous studio, and you do one-on-one functional integration lessons that are totally capable of changing someone's life.
Absolutely.
Mary, you told a great story about being at Tanglewood back in the day 25 years ago when I was also there but didn't know you. Charlie
Yes.
was there playing, and you met Leonard Bernstein, and what did he say to you?
He said that how he works with the conductors is basically what Feldenkrais is doing and what I do with the students at Tanglewood, which is to pinpoint that which they don't know that they're doing and give them that clue, like, okay, basically stop doing that and do something different, find a new way. And that was, so he totally endorsed the method, and I didn't know he knew the method or me. He said, that's what you do here.
What an acknowledgement 25 years ago
Yeah.
from Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
wonderful.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
Lenny epitomized intelligence because he knew more and was willing to learn in every situation. And he was a phenomenal teacher, even though we all know that no one can teach anyone else anything. You can only teach yourself. But what Feldenkrais has done, what I've tried to do, is create the environment which makes it possible for the person to teach him or herself.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't that it?
That's a summation of Feldenkrais.
That's a great
diploma right now.
That's perfect. You guys, this has been great to do this interview with the two of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mary Spire, Charlie Schlueter.
Thanks.
Woo.
Bravo.
Yeah.